Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Tuesday, February 11th. Man, the year goes quick. My grandmother, I reference her a lot. God bless her soul. She lived to be 97 years old. And we were close. She talked about a lot of things. And I didn't understand it back in the day totally, but now I do. Like one of the things she used to always say is, well, time goes really quick. And as you get older, it goes fast. So you got to enjoy your life while you have it, because before you know it, it's like, what the hell? 50 years has gone by or whatever. And when you're 18 or 19, you think, nah, it's not going to happen. You can't imagine it, but it really does. The other thing she told me is you always feel like you're 18 years old in your head, even though she was like in her 70s at the time. She told me that. And she said it's real weird because she was a pretty woman back in the day. It's, like in the 20s. She would have been like a flapper. She was pretty attractive. And she said she never recognized herself in the mirror when she got older. And yeah, that is true. So you have that dichotomy. You always still feel young. At least I do. Now, luckily, I'm at the age, I'm still active. I still, thank God, a lot of people don't have that ability. I feel like I could still do everything. Sasha's got this big like shed or barn that she has her eBay business, and there's some lofts up there, and she's kind of scared going up there, which I don't blame her. But I just, crawled up there on the ladder like a monkey. So I feel good about that. But time does go quick because it seems like it's just Christmas now. We're Valentine's Day headed up. Valentine's Day. It's not one of my most favorite holidays. I have to be honest about it. But it's okay. I much prefer Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving. I like the holidays where there's not much guilt, right? So, or a lot of pressure. I always hated Mother's Day for that reason. It's like, oh, geez, I have to do something. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a good day. Today is Tuesday, and Tuesday is our day that we have the roundtable. And if you want to join the roundtable, let me just send you the Substack that you can sign up on. Substack is my replacement for Gumroad, basically, in group app. It's a way to support me monthly, and I do appreciate that. Because unlike everyone else, I think everyone else has been getting USAID money. I didn't put out my application. I don't know why. I didn't get millions of dollars to do propaganda. I would have, but, I never got offered. So I rely on you guys, and I really do appreciate it. And I do appreciate it because it makes me independent. I'm not dependent on some government agency. And so that's the number one reason. But also you get to be involved with our roundtables. They're really good. A lot of very talented people. And you can join the roundtable, but if you're shy and you don't want to join it, you can just watch it live. If you don't want to watch it live, watch it later. They're up always. So they're pretty informative. We typically go, last week we had a really good session. We went 2 hours. And that's tonight at 7 p.m. I think we're going to discuss all this Doge stuff. I usually try to have a topic that we discuss on the roundtable, and everyone gets a chance to speak, so it's pretty fun. On Friday nights, I have like an open mic. People call in for a question or a comment, but I try to keep that real short, just because I learned that from listening to Rush Limbaugh on radio shows. People like callers that come in, ask a question, and get off. They don't want to hear a whole speech. But if you want to get more in depth, join the roundtable. And again, it's on Substack. I got the link below. And I also, every Monday through Friday, I do an essay or a video on Substack. Usually an essay Monday through Thursday, and it's free to the public, so sign up for that. And then Friday, I do one for my subscribers as a thank you. That's kind of the routine I got in. If you're new to the RAMZPAUL show here, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support by watching. And how you can help contribute to the show, make it interesting. You can, YouTube has Super Chats, Rumble has rants. You have a question or a comment, what's going on in the news, get your input, people can see it. Powerchats, there's a link below. You can send Powerchats day or night, and I will get them, and I'll bring up your question or your statement. And Stream Elements has the feature. like Power Chat. This is basically the same thing. If for some reason you don't like Power Chats, just use Stream Elements. I appreciate that. That's a way to interact with the show. And on Friday nights, we do the show on YouTube, Rumble, and X Monday through Thursday at 11 a.m. And Friday, though, we don't do it during the day. We have our evening shows, a little bit more informal, and people can call in. But there's just a quick call in. And it's a lot of fun. Tuesdays, we have a roundtable. And on Wednesdays, I'm looking to maybe restructure something. I'm kind of working with someone, maybe setting something up for Wednesday nights. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I just want to just absolutely confirm it, get the details. It won't be this Wednesday. I think we'll start the Wednesday after this Wednesday. So a lot of stuff going on. And of course, we have Night Owls. That's the show I do with Sasha. That's kind of on an ad hoc basis. That's more we discuss movies, culture, whatever. And I recommend check that. A lot of people they love Night Owls best than anything. Sasha's really good. She's really blunt, plain. She just speaks well and how she talks about stuff. She's pretty. She's really honest. Just how she comes across her views. So I like that. So check that out too. And all right, it's a kind of a cold day here in Arkansas. It rained. It's really cold rain. I thought it was going to snow, but we do got some ice out there. I took a photo on Twitter. It's pretty. Let's see. Oh, already got a super chat. Widookind. Walt Disney from woke to broke. Yeah, Walt Disney, the original Walt Disney, he was pretty based. But like a lot of institutions, what happens is the left gets part of it, and then they destroy it. And that has definitely happened with Disney. Disney used to be, Walt Disney had a passion for goodness, wholesome family entertainment, classic children's tales and something, you could be proud of. And then you got, was it Eisner that got in charge of it? And it became very much, let's replace white characters because white people are evil. And let's make characters, let's push homosexuality. It's really sad how they push that on children. I'm hoping there's going to be a little bit of a pushback on that. In fact, there is already. I don't have this as a link of the story. I should have, though. I should have. But Walt Disney announced that they are going to, or Disney, they are going to pull back on some of their woke bullshit with their FCC filing and with their stockholders. So we will see. So I think the whole woke thing is starting to crumble. It's not crumbling easily though. There's a lot of pushback, and we'll get into that during the show today. So it's not like Trump wins, everything's magically fixed. But I do think it's an inflection point. Unlike his first term, he just has so much resistance. I was funded by everyone, including his own government. I think he was a little bit more naive back then. He didn't understand how Washington worked. But now he's surrounded by, instead of like Kushner, he's got J.D. Vance and he's got Elon Musk, really sharp guys. And they're really figuring out how the system works and how they need to kill the rattlesnake that's in there. And they figured out trying to get it is at the head, the funding. But the rattlesnake, rattlesnakes have a lore. You could cut off their head, and for a period of time, they will still bite, even though their head's decapitated. It's bizarre. And so they can be dangerous. And that's what we're seeing now in the death throes of the woke system, and they're thrashing about. And it's not over, so there's still a struggle to be had. But I do think we've passed a lot of this woke stuff. Whereas in 2016, when Trump got into power, won the election, came in 2017, constant BLM, Antifa riots, it was really ended up peak woke that continued on through the Biden administration. But I think it's finally the spell kind of broke. I detected it last year. People were getting tired of it, especially all the homosexual push last June, because I was prepared for all the pride parades everywhere, all the corporations. But they slowly start to pull back from that, and we're seeing that. So I think that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm hopeful. It'd be nice if Disney just went back to having entertainment, family-friendly entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't need messages about trans ideology or girl bosses or white people are bad. We don't need that. So hopefully that will change. So thank you, Widow Kid. All right. Well, let's start with foreign. I have these categories because I do prep. I do prep for my shows. All my shows I prep for, except for Night Owls. We don't really do prep on Night Owls. And sometimes that's the best show. Maybe there's a lesson to be learned there. Sometimes on Night Owls, I'll have a few things, but this is Tucker Carlson. This is, I would say it's shocking, but I'm not really shocked
Second
about this.
fact.
Let's take a look at this here.
Fact, not guess. Fact is Ukrainian military is selling a huge percentage, up to half of the arms that we send them. Half. And I'm not guessing about this. I know that for a fact, okay? Not speculation.
So Tucker Carlson, I do trust him. So he's saying this isn't speculation. This is actually happening. Half the arms we're sending over to Ukraine. Ukraine's a very corrupt country. The government has always been. In Europe, it's one of the most corrupt countries. And obviously they get this money or they get the arms. They can make a lot of private money by selling it on the black market.
And they're selling it. And a lot of us winding up with the drug cartels on our border. So this is a crime. What's happening? Our intel agencies are fully aware of this. You tell me they're not profiting from this. Of course, you think CIA is not profiting from this? Yes, they are. I can't prove that, but I believe that. What they don't know this, I know this, but they don't know this. They know this, and no one is saying it. Like no one.
I don't know if they know it. You know, the CIA, they probably do, but they're so up their own butts with their pride marches and everything else. These organizations, not only have they become woke like the CIA and FBI, but they've also been infused with a lot of DEI. And with that, they get a lot of incompetence, which is sometimes a good thing. You don't want these secret police agencies to be evil and competent. If they're going to be evil, it's better that they're incompetent. So they've had a lot of incompetent people in these positions that probably goof off all day, and they're not really concerned about such matters. We learned that with the FBI because of the details about, well, how many FBI agents were working trying to track down all these January 6th protesters? You know, not the violent ones, just the people that walk through the Capitol. Just, you know, you could say it's technically trespassing. I would say it wasn't even trespassing because the police waved them in. But they spent half of their force not going after, you know, like terrorists or anything like that. They went after these people. This is where they spent their resources. So the secret police and the secret agencies like the CIA, they're not what they used to be.
American seems aware of this. We're sending these arms to Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's being stolen and sold to our actual enemies. Like, what the? I'm trying not to swear. What is this?
Yeah, well, the reason why is because you have Zelensky, it was about 3 weeks ago, I think, was specifically asked this question. So he went at some length in one of his interviews to say, oh, no, absolutely not. There's no truth to that at all. We've implemented all these things. I know that, but the media just reported what he said.
You know, the New York Times could get on the web and order Ukrainian weapons. That's a fact. I'm not guessing. It's a fact. They could do that today.
So I guess these weapons that we're sending over with your tax dollars, a lot of them are getting on the black market, and I guess anyone can order them. I guess there's websites you can get these. So this is a huge problem. The whole Ukrainian fiasco needs to end for many reasons. And I know Trump is sending an envoy over to Moscow now. I think J.D. Vance is meeting with Zelensky this week, maybe today or sometime. Is it today he's meeting with him or tomorrow? I think he's meeting with him tomorrow. And Trump is doing his usual negotiating style with Russia. And, you know, Trump always starts out with a big carrot and a big stick. And both are radical. So he's like, hey, Russia, you agree to the deal I'm proposing. We're going to be best buds. We're going to drop all the sanctions. We're just going to be full of love. But if you go against us, there's going to be hell on earth to pay. We're going to not only sanction you, but any country that does business with you, we're going to sanction. which is kind of crazy. So that'd be like sanctioning India and China. I don't know if we really could do that, but this is Trump's style of negotiation. And he's been kind of hardline both on Russia and Zelensky. And that's part of, you could say he's just kind of chaotic Trump, or, oh, he's just crazy. But I think there's a method to his madness. This is how he, again, negotiates. And you've already seen it bear fruits. We saw this in Panama, right? He just started, hey, we're going to take the Panama Canal back. It really should be ours. Created a big uproar. But guess what? Panama agreed to allow our Navy to go through the canal for free. And they agreed to kick out the Chinese management team. So previously, they wouldn't have done that. And so this is Trump, what he does. And he did this with the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and by threatening them, and they came to heel like, okay, we'll protect the border, put troops on, and stop the fentanyl. We'll have to see if they really do. But that's part of Trump's strategy. But we need to get out of Ukraine just because it's costing us so much money. Well, number one, from the American interest, it costs us a lot of money. There's a lot of fraud that our weapons end up with, like the drug cartels, because we're sending it over to crooks. Zelensky's a crook. The government's crooked. Remember, when him and his wife came to New York City, his wife spent $1 million jewelry shopping. They don't make that kind of money over there on the presidential salary. So they're taking your tax dollars. And yeah, he's a dictator. He canceled elections. He arrests Christians. He killed an American, Gonzalo Lira, for his views. They're not a free country. They arrest journalists. We shouldn't be in that war, period. I would just pull out of it. Trump's trying to negotiate a peace. I don't really care. I really think the easiest way to do is like Ukraine, you're on your own unless you want to fight with Europe. That's you guys' business. This isn't our concern. What part of Ukraine should belong to Russia or not is not really in our interest. And again, this all started, ironically, because of USAID, the United States Agency of International Development. They helped to fund these NGOs like Victoria Nuland was part of, and all these neocons. And part of the funding went to subversion in countries, or what they called color revolutions, where we, or through our NGOs, would help to overthrow a country and put in a coup. We did that in 2014 with the president of Ukraine that was friendly with Russia, and we implemented a coup, put our puppet in, and that puppet went on a ethnic cleansing against the Russian people, especially in the East, and it sparked a civil war. The war didn't start with the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. It started in 2014, and it was a very bloody civil war. It lasted over 7 years. Then Russia got involved. So it's a big mess out of there. We need to just wash our hands from. George Washington was right. We shouldn't get involved with entangling alliances. This was an issue even back in his day. We did not need to get involved with European matters. I mean, we wish them well. We wish, good people will win. And if you want to privately want to pick up a rifle and go fight for Ukraine, well, God bless you. I don't really care. But don't get our country involved with it. We should just pull out of it 100%. And maybe Trump will. We'll have to see what his negotiating strategy is. I think he's big on his legacy now. I think he wants to be defined as he brought peace. And it does bother him to see all these people, up to a couple of million people slaughtered over the past few years. He wants to end the slaughtering. I understand that. But there comes a point that we just may have to step away from this entire mess and not trying to embed ourselves within it. Otherwise, this could end up to be Trump's Vietnam. We don't need that. I don't think Trump will do that. I really don't. But the problem is, how can we get the negotiations to really work? Putin is not that big of a hawk as people think. He's more of a moderate. I know, he's a Hitler. Not, he really isn't. He's just a moderate. And he might be reasonable to some negotiations, but we'll have to see. Part of the issue is Russia's slowly winning. They're just grinding out Ukraine. And the Ukrainian army is looking like they maybe have another year until they finally collapse. So Russia knows they just can, if they keep grinding on, they're going to win. Ukraine's just running out of men. They're all dying. So we could send in more aid and everything, but what's the point if all their men are dead? So it's going to be a tough negotiation, but hopefully something can happen with that. I haven't covered Ukraine in a while. I used to do it quite a bit on the show, the Ukrainian war, just because it's been a very long and kind of a depressing war. It's not a fun war with a lot of big arrows and exciting movements. It's just trench warfare, and we're talking just slow advances every day, a couple 100 yards, and it's just a real grind. And it's turned into be more of a drone war and artillery. There's not the fast movement of tanks or troops anymore. And I'm not saying the war's static, because it isn't static. Russia is winning despite all the propaganda. That again, a lot of those propaganda accounts were funded by your tax dollars through USAID. And now that that's cut, they've gone. But it's not a good thing, and we don't need to waste our money on it and get embroiled with this. We would solve a lot of problems if we just kept out of the other countries' business. We really would. Not just with Russia and Ukraine, but the Middle East. If I was president, and I'm a big fan of Trump, most of what he's done I really like, but I will push back on policies that I'm not a big fan of. And I think that helps. I think it's good to push back because it gets him to reconsider. On Christmas Day, remember we had that big H-1B fiasco with Vivek and Elon Musk, and people really pushed back hard on it. And I think it influenced Trump a little bit on that. And then, he floated let's just get rid of all the people in Gaza and I'll make casinos there or something. People were saying, no, we don't want America's soldiers to be in the Gaza Strip. And Trump immediately said, oh, no, I'm not going to send soldiers. So it's good to get pushback when there's some kind of nutty schemes here. And I don't really care about Ukraine or Russia. We just need to be out of it. And if Europeans care about it, then they can fund the war. We don't need to fund the war. There's a lot of bad things that happen, not just all the people killed, but the weapons going to the drug cartels and all of that. So, and let's hear from JD Vance. He's been a really rock solid here. And more I see of JD Vance, the more I like him.
Now we've also
Here we go. Let's listen to him.
watched as hostile foreign adversaries have weaponized AI software to rewrite history, surveil users, and censor speech. This is hardly new, of course. As they do with other tech, some authoritarian regimes have stolen and used AI to strengthen their military, intelligence, and surveillance capabilities, capture foreign data, and create propaganda to undermine other nations' national security. I want to be clear. This administration will block such efforts, full stop. We will safeguard American AI and chip technologies from theft and misuse, work with our allies and partners to strengthen and extend these protections, and close pathways to adversaries attaining AI capabilities that threaten all of our people. And I would also remind our international friends here today that partnering with such regimes, it never pays off in the long term. From CCTV to 5G equipment, we're all familiar with cheap tech in the marketplace that's been heavily subsidized and exported by authoritarian regimes. But as I know, and I think some of us in this room have learned from experience, partnering with them means chaining your nation to an authoritarian master that seeks to infiltrate, dig in, and seize your information infrastructure. Should a deal seem too good to be true, just remember the old adage that we learned in Silicon Valley: if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah, that's a good point. He was talking about AI, but in a bigger context, because you think, oh, is he talking about China and North Korea? But it's clear a lot of this he was talking about authoritarian regimes like Britain, who now plan to use AI to better censor their citizens. Like if they don't want their citizens to complain because they're being stabbed by Muslim immigrants, for example, they'll use AI to track people down. And the Trump administration has been very adamant that these governments not use this technology in a nefarious manner, in a dystopian manner, in a 1984 George Orwell manner. But this is what we're looking at. So I hope we need with any technology can be used for good or evil. It can. Like nuclear power, there's a nuclear bomb, but nuclear power plants are good. And electricity, everything. You can do wonderful things with it. You can do wonderful evil. So I'm not against AI. I think it's pretty cool. I use it for drawing pictures a lot, and it's handy. I use it for just referencing things, but it can be abused, and we need to be diligent on that evil governments like Britain and Canada don't start to use it to clamp down on free expression. Because that is what they're going to do for that. All right, we'll stay with the foreign stuff here for a bit. And here was this. Devastating. Kibbutz Kisufim announced the death of Shlomo Mansour, who was the oldest hostage at 86. Kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th, Mansour was also a Holocaust survivor. Well, I did the math on this, and I guess it's sad he was killed or by a hostage, although unless he's an American, this really shouldn't be our business. And I don't really take sides one way or the other in Israel. Israel has been basically doing an ethnic cleansing. You could argue a genocide with the Palestinian people, just reducing the place to rubble. And I'm not a fan of Palestinians. I don't want them in our country. We've seen the trouble importing Muslims have created in Europe and America. So I'm opposed to really both sides. But the whole Holocaust thing, I don't see how that's relevant. I did the math. And if he's 86, that means he was born in like 1939, I believe. So he would have been at the most when the war ended 6 years old. So I'm not really sure what they mean by Holocaust survivor. What does that mean? Was he in a camp and he was almost killed? Or because the term Holocaust survivor, they've used it to mean if you're a Jew that just happened to live somewhere in Europe during the war, you were somehow magically a Holocaust survivor, including Soros, who actually worked with the Nazis. So it is kind of it's an emotional word that really, it doesn't really change the fact. Like, for example, if he wasn't a Holocaust survivor, would that change the facts of this? No, it wouldn't. So I'm kind of tired of that propaganda. And you would think eventually all these people are dying off because that happened so long ago. And again, it wasn't like he was fighting the Nazis as a young man. He was a little kid. He probably didn't understand anything. And I doubt it meant he was in a camp or anything like that. But it's just this emotional slotch that they try to pour on us that it's just running a little bit old on that. And but I think they use it as an important narrative to show that they're special. And when they're killed, Jewish people are killed. Somehow it's worse than when Palestinians are killed because, oh, don't you know, the Jewish people faced the Holocaust, but the Palestinians didn't. I think it's that type of thing they're trying to go for, but that really shouldn't matter one way or the other. And again, I'm sorry the guy died. I didn't know him, so I don't really care that much. Just like I don't care for most of the Palestinians if they should die. It's not like I advocate for it. I just don't really care. It's just not on my radar. And the fact this guy was supposedly, and I say supposedly because I'm very skeptical of these claims and what they really meant by the claims. Did it really happen? That'd be like me saying I'm a Vietnam War survivor, even though, because I was alive during the time of the Vietnam War, but I was just a little kid. I didn't go to Vietnam, so am I a Vietnam War survivor? It's like, really? So there's just a lot of stuff in there that's kind of skeptical. But Trump's using this as the thing. And we'll get into an area I a little bit of disagree with here. And,
but as far as I would say this, and I'm going to let that because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out.
So this is an interesting framing. So is he talking about American hostages or Israeli hostages that are held by the Palestinians? And what do they mean by the term hostage exactly versus prisoner of war? Because they're pretty much in a de facto war, right? Israel versus Palestine. I think it's a war. And when it's a war, you take prisoners from other sides. A hostage tends to be something where you take someone and you demand money. You don't hear it much anymore, but you kidnap a child, or you take hostages and you make some demands. In the 70s, I got these hostages. You got to give me a plane to Cuba. Left-wing radicals would say stuff like that. That's the term of hostage. I'm not really quite sure if it's hostage. So it's like the Palestinians, their prisoners are called hostages, but the Palestinians that are held by the Israelis are called prisoners. Well, okay, doesn't Israel take hostages? I don't know. But why is this our concern? And again, I don't advocate, I'm not a fan of Hamas at all. I don't want them over here. But how is this really our concern? This is Israel's concern. They need to deal with it. God knows we give them enough money. And it sounds like Trump is threatening military action. All hell's going to break loose. Well, what more can you do? Israel's already flattened Palestine and how many tens of thousands of people have they killed? They're going to kill more people, I guess. I'm not really quite sure. So
I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock.
High noon. It's like a cowboy. I'll see you at high noon.
And after that, I would say all hell is going to break out.
So I guess all hell will just kill much more Palestinians. And it's not like I really care one way or the other about the Palestinians. But I don't think this is our fight. Unless I'm misunderstanding, there's American hostages. This shouldn't be a priority for the United States. Because what happens when you get in these entanglements, it just creates a feedback loop that doesn't end. Our policy should be, we are here for the American people. We have borders. This country's not for you guys. You stay in your countries. I'm sorry if you can't make nice homelands for whatever reason. That's not our problem. We have our homeland. We're defending our people. We're friendly with other countries, but we're not responsible for you. We're not responsible for Israelis or Palestinians. You guys have to work out your own differences. And if we can help by, being like mediators, help develop a peace, we'll do that. But we're not going to insert ourselves into the conflict. That always creates problems. Because when you do this, so let's say Hamas, which doesn't represent all Palestinians, but it's their group, right? So let's say they refuse to release their prisoners, the Israeli prisoners. And Trump responds by dropping the mother of all bombs, or one of those huge bombs, and kills 20,000 Palestinian men, women, and children, civilians. What is that actually proving? Is that going to solve anything? I mean, maybe if you genocide everyone, maybe that's the goal. But the problem when you do that is then other Muslims around the world see that, oh, okay, the United States is a lackey of Israel, and the United States is fair game for terrorist attacks. We don't have an air force and stuff to attack with. So we have to fight this war asymmetrically. So what we have to do is sneak people in and start mowing down people in restaurants and stuff like that. And you may say that's horrible in terrorism, but how's that any different than you dropping bombs from, way up in the mile up in the sky down on our people? How's that really any different? And if you don't want us to shoot up your restaurants, stop dropping bombs on us, stop getting in on the side of Israel in this war. And that is a compelling argument. It's not an argument I support. I don't want terrorists. They should be killed. We don't need them in here. But the more we get involved with these situations, it tends to create more terrorism. And our position should be with the Muslim world. God bless you. Hopefully you'll turn to Jesus. But until then, God bless you. We'll trade with you, or Allah bless you. We don't want you in our homelands. You're not really compatible. But God bless you. We're not going to get involved with your wars or anything like that. That's the way it should be. And this is a problem I disagree with Trump in. He's very heavily a Zionist for whatever reason. And we knew that going in. Most of the government is. For a lot of the big donors are Zionists, and the news media heavily Jewish, that are sympathetic with their ethno-state. And so you get people like Tom Cotton, who's my senator from Arkansas. He never tweets about Arkansas. He's always tweeting about Israel. You're like, how in the hell did that happen? Well, he gets his funding from big donors, right? That support Zionism. He doesn't give a shit about people in Arkansas because they don't fund him. So our whole political system's messed up, but that's how it works, both Republicans and Democrats. And then some people, because of their religious beliefs, believe that we got to support Israel because God will bless us. It will help bring Jesus back. It's kind of nutty, but so there's a lot of that go into it. Then there's the guilt. Oh, the Holocaust. And because of that, that's why they always bring that up. We have to treat the Jewish people in Israel different than we treat the Palestinians. They have a higher moral claim. Their lives matter more than the Palestinians because of the Holocaust. Some sort of nonsense like that. I don't know where Trump gets his views on this, but the younger people, both in the Democrats and the Republicans, are less interested in getting involved with Israel. It doesn't mean they're hostile towards Israel. I'm not really hostile towards Israel. I think they're kind of an example of an ethno-state other countries can emulate. So in some ways, they're a good example. And they have no qualms with protecting their borders, kicking out illegals. They even do ethnic cleansing. They don't give a shit. So that's something we can learn from, but we shouldn't be just tied up with them. If they want to do their thing, let them do it, but we shouldn't be involved with it. But Trump, and I don't know if it's because of his donors, it's because of his true beliefs or what, but this is it's a weird thing we have in our circles on what I would call the conservatives, or I guess you call it MAGA now in America, but reform, or even in Canada, that Pierre guy in Canada, he just like grovels when it comes to Israel. And the same, you see this in Britain and America. It's as a conservative, we can't ever take our own position. We always have to do it via proxy. I've made this statement many times, but it's really true. So we can't say, no, we don't want immigration because it hurts us white Americans or it hurts us white Europeans. No, we can't say that. That'd be Nazism, racist, xenophobia. So we got to do it in a weird way. No, we don't want this immigration, Muslim immigration into, let's say, Ireland, because it hurts our Jewish population. So you have to use a proxy. We can't take our own interest, or it hurts our homosexuals or whatever. We got to get to the point where we reject that and know we want to do what's in our interest. We don't have to use someone else as a proxy. And I think a lot of times they do that. You see it all the time. for example, when you have DEI or affirmative action, you don't hear them, politicians say, well, this hurts white people. Although they're starting to. They're starting to. So that's progress. But typically they say, oh, this is really, it hurts Jewish people or hurts Asians. They won't mention us because somehow it's wrong to advocate in our own interest. Because we adopt the premise of the left, the woke left, that whites are evil, whiteness needs to be eliminated. And they kind of, the conservatives sort of believe it's somewhat shameful to have pride in your ethnicity if you're white. Now, it's okay if you're Jewish. In fact, most of these conservatives, they have pride in a ethnic group and a religion that's not even theirs, and in many cases hate them. I mean, this ethnic group hates them, but they still have pride in that group because they have to have some sort of pride because they've been brainwashed. Oh, having pride in your own people. Like if you're Germans, if you're in Germany and you have pride in the white Germans, that's evil. That's Nazism. Or if you do that in the United States, oh, it means you're a white supremacist KKK. The propaganda has really brainwashed our people so much. Not just the purple hair, blue hair, silly girls you see on campus, but even supposedly sober-minded men, they feel somehow guilty of taking their own side because that's somehow wicked and evil. We got to break free of that. And I think that would be a good thing to do. We're getting there, so I'm not trying to be super black pill that it will never happen, but it is difficult to, it's just the new thing. And I think the younger people in the Republican Party or conservatism are starting to embrace that more. I really do think that is starting to happen. So I'm not trying to, it's a process. And part of the reason the older people, I hate generational politics. I make jokes about it, but the boomers, I don't, but you have to understand a lot of the boomers, they grew up in a time where America was 90% white. They were taught that blacks are always the victims, the women are the victims, Jews are the victims. They don't understand the dynamic as it exists today. David Steele met Walt Disney in the early 60s. Did you? Man, that's so cool. And got his autograph. He was stepping out of a limo at the Denver Celebrity Sports Center. I was thrilled. I hope you still have that autograph. That is damn cool. That's probably a very valuable autograph. I admire Walt Disney. I think he was a genius in a lot of ways. He established a cultural icon in Disney before it became corrupt and all about promoting child homosexuality. It used to be about wholesome type of stuff. So that is really, really cool. All right. We'll keep on the foreign theme for a while here, and then we'll get to some. Here's Trump talking again about. So we're going over some stuff I disagree with Trump.
Canada, if this should happen, I don't know how they can do it without us, because without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a country. They do almost all of their business with us, and if we say we want our cars to be made in Detroit, with a stroke of a pen, I can do that. And other things in addition to that would not allow Canada to be a viable country.
Mr. President, you're going to honor first responders today.
So Trump was basically saying here, and there's this big debate, is Trump serious about taking Canada as part of the United States, or was this just a negotiating ploy to get a better deal with Canada? We'll see. I don't know. He did get the deal with Trudeau, decided, okay, we'll spend $1 billion and send troops to the border, and we'll send up a fentanyl czar in Canada to stop fentanyl. But really, that is small potatoes, and that's the bare minimum. Canada should be doing that anyway. That's just good for Canada. But Trump almost acts like he wants more, and the question is he just saying this kind of what would be considered crazy? I think it's kind of, I don't want this because the Canadian people don't want this. So there's a lot of problems with this, and is he serious? Is he half serious? Or really, what's the goal here? Part of what Trump is saying is somewhat true, but it's only true because of poor Canadian policies. If Canada had a better government, they could be very much independent. Canada is a very wealthy nation. Canada should probably be one of the most wealthy nations on earth. They have a lot of natural resources, oil and gas, minerals. They have a lot of land. Before their immigration disaster, they had a good stock of people that were intelligent. Now they've diluted their population, sadly, under 8 years of the Liberal government, or 10 years, whatever it's been. And they've imported a lot of people that have increased the crime and lowered the IQ. But in general, Canadians, they have a lot going for them. And they could be pretty well self-sufficient. They have a lot of oil and gas. They could trade with other countries. And they have farmlands, and I think they could be a standalone country. Well, they are, but right now they depend a lot on the U.S. But the problem in Canada is they've had such wacky liberal policies, socialist, this green agenda, that they canceled pipelines, they canceled their energy development, and that's their number one asset, right? That's what they are. That'd be like if you're Ukraine and your number one asset is exporting wheat, and then the government comes in and says, no, we can't grow wheat anymore. It's suicidal. But that's the Liberal government in Canada has done that. And in fact, they had a pipeline that we're going to build from Western Canada, where all the energy is, to Quebec. Right now, they have to go through the United States, so they're dependent on the United States. But they canceled the pipeline, the Liberal government in Canada, because it's going to offend Mother Earth. We gotta be green. So they put in all these crazy policies, and Canada is a basket case right now. Pierre said this, the guy that's running. He's I think the Conservative Party. He said that Canada, they now have an equivalent income of Mississippi. That's our poorest state in America, Mississippi. The average Canadian is like a Mississippi income, but their cost of living is like California. So they don't make much money, and it's an extremely expensive place. They've had mass immigration, helped to destroy cities like Toronto. It doesn't even look Canadian anymore. And there's a lot of poverty now because of the socialist policies in Canada. But I think they could be a very viable country if they fix themselves. They'd have to deport a lot of people. They'd have to deport a lot of the Indians that have been brought in, and Chinese. That'd be very difficult, but they would need to do that. And then they would need to have a better government. But they could be very viable on their own. They wouldn't need the United States, even though we're their biggest trading partner. But right now, Trump is right. They're very dependent on the United States. So this could just be even a ploy to help Canada, because it will force Canada to become more independent and more nationalistic, and that'd be good for the Canadian people. But I don't know. I don't want to take Canada because, number one, the people don't want it. And how would we do that then exactly? I don't, we're not going to send in the military, I don't think. Do we want a hostile population? I know they're just Canadian, so they're not really that scary, but what are you going to do with them? Are we going to treat them like Palestinians and put them on a special farm somewhere? I don't know. I mean, really, what are we going to do? Deport all the Canadians? Empty the country, empty Canada, so that we can put our people there? You're just going to create problems there. And then if we had them in, we can't let them vote, because they would all vote Democrat, and they would be the biggest state, and every president would be a Democrat then. So I don't want them there. It's not that the Canadians are bad people. They just have a big problem there, and I don't want to inherit that mess. So I think that's kind of ill-sighted, trying to take over Canada. But again, we always have to ask, does he really mean it, or is it more of to stir things up? My guess is it's a little of both. I don't think Trump really thinks he's going to get Canada, but I think he sees himself as, in the 19th century America, our manifest destiny. Trump is a man of God. He spared his life, and he wants to see America Why must we always shrink as America? Why can't we just start expanding like we did in the 19th century? Just like it was our manifest destiny, go from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. It was God's plan, and we did that. And we bought Alaska, and it was, and then we got some territories, Hawaii, the Philippines, Guam. Maybe we should start doing that again. And we should have Canada and Greenland. All of North America should be America, the United States. I think he has this vision. He wants somewhat joke, let's put the American flag on Mars. I could see him claiming we own the moon as the United States. He has that vision of like an imperial vision, which I have some qualms about, but I understand the thinking a little bit. And so I do think it's just not all a bluff. This is part of how he does this here. A couple other things he's doing. We're still on foreign policy, then we'll get to the domestic stuff. Let me just see here. This has to do with Gaza. And again, I think we should just stay out of this. But part of the problem with the Gaza Strip is, well, this is, first of all, an example. Diversity never works. Diversity and proximity always equals conflict. It's not a strength. And you can't put a bunch of Jews in an area and then a bunch of Muslims and have it work out, because the Jewish people want all their own homeland. Well, they can do their Jewish things, and they don't want Muslims disturbing that, because if Muslims came in, if they started great immigration or they started to breed like rabbits, they would outnumber the Jews, and Israel would no longer be a Jewish state, which is true. It makes sense. So the Jews don't want them around. And that's why you can't allow these people in. But the problem is, before the Jews came there after World War II, there's the Palestinians there. And so the question is where to push them. They've been pushed out of most of Israel. They've been given a couple territories, I think the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, are what we call the Palestinians. It's almost like an open-air concentration camp, basically, where they dumped them. And now Israel, especially the settlers, are like, we'd like that property in the West Bank. We want that all because we want the greater Israel. But we got these pesky people. What do? If we just take over the territory, then we have these people in. We don't want to give them the right to vote because, again, we're Jewish. We don't want them to take over. So, and we can't, probably have like an apartheid system where Muslims can't vote. That wouldn't be good optics. So, you got genocide is one option. Ethnic cleansing, where you move the people, is another option. And it looks like they're going for the ethnic cleansing option, and Trump's on board with that. No matter how you spin it. And I'm not, because ethnic cleansing has got a bad name, but that's just a value judgment. I don't, that's the way history has usually worked. And so Trump has jumped aboard the ethnic cleansing idea of let's just take everyone that's Palestinian in the Gaza Strip and we'll ship them out somewhere else. And then Trump made the thing that the United States would own the Gaza Strip, which I don't think Israel really has that in mind. Israel really wants to own it. So they're kind of looking side-eyed at that idea. But does he really, or is he going to give it to Israel? I don't know. But Trump's idea, let's make it into like a big, instead of the Gaza Strip, it'd be like the Las Vegas Strip in Middle East. We'll have all these hotels, casinos, we'll clean it up, have fountains. That's his vision. But the problem is we have these people that are a problem. What do we do with them? It's probably bad optics to kill them all. Oh, if they don't release the hostages, maybe they'll do that. But we want to ship them out. But ship them out to where, right? And at least Trump is on our side. He doesn't want to ship them to Europe or America because we don't want them here. They're not going to be good in our neighborhoods. So he's saying, well, okay, Egypt and Jordan, you need to take them. In Egypt, they're like, well, they're not our people. Why do we have to take them? And Trump's like, well, Israel doesn't want them, and we're best friends with Israel. They're God's chosen people. So they can't have them. We don't want them because, they'll just cause us problems. So you can have them. And Egypt's like, yeah, I don't think we really want them. And so Trump is now threatening Egypt that if they don't take the Palestinians from Gaza, he will cut off their foreign aid. So again, this is how you negotiate. You get $1 billion from us a year. It will cut off foreign aid unless you agree to take all the Palestinians. Now, again, in the RAMZPAUL presidency, if I was king, we wouldn't do any of this. First of all, we wouldn't give Israel any money. They want to get any money. Oh no, another Holocaust. And and then Egypt wouldn't get any money either. And I wouldn't care about the Gaza Strip one way or the other. That's for them to decide. See, it's kind of simple my way, because we'd be focused on America. So I don't know. So that's the new plan. I'm not really a big fan of that plan, because I don't really care about Gaza, to be honest. It's not my, I don't really care about the whole area. It just causes us troubles getting us issues there. And let's get one more foreign thing, then we'll go to domestic here. And we'll kind of pivot to Ukraine here. See a little clip about Ukraine here. Here we go.
This nightmare of a war finally come to an end. President Trump revealing in an exclusive interview with the New York Post that he has spoken with Vladimir Putin by telephone about ending the war in Ukraine. Jack Keane, retired four-star general. General, good morning to you. You have been our guidepost.
This is interesting because Trump told the New York Post reportedly that he talked to Putin, but the Moscow hasn't really confirmed that. So there's some question if it really happened. Probably they did talk, but they agreed to keep it confidential, but Trump blabbed it. But at least some backdoor negotiations have already started, and we will see here.
Throughout this entire war. Welcome back here on this Monday morning. To Miranda Devine, New York Post, he said, I hope it's fast. Every day people are dying. This war is so bad in Ukraine. I want to end this damn thing, end quote.
They censored the word damn. Is damn really that bad of a word anymore?
For reports this morning that Keith Kellogg, the general, has apparently said that he will give 3 options to the president by the end of this week on what could possibly happen with the war. How do you see it? How do we end it? Can we do it?
I'll answer this. I haven't seen this clip about how our policy should be. This isn't the United States war. We're cutting off funding in Ukraine. If Europe wants to continue the war and fund Ukraine, that's up to them. This isn't a concern of America. So we'd cut off funding, and that'd probably end the war. Europe wouldn't be able to sustain it. But it's not our business. That's how I will do it. What Trump is doing here could be a little risky, because I don't want to escalate this thing further. And I'm at the age now, so I'm old, but I remember when I was young, everyone was haunted by the Vietnam War. And in the Vietnam War is a little different because our troops were there. But it started out, we were just funding South Vietnam. And then it was like, we'd do a surge there and would just, try to end it all at once. And that didn't work, and it drags on and drags on. And it's going to be difficult, I think, to find an agreement with Putin. But maybe I'm wrong. But I think Putin does not want to freeze the conflict and have to fight this again in, let's say, 4 years or 8 years or whatever. He doesn't want a situation where, okay, we're going to stop and we'll let Ukraine build up again and we'll fight another war, because Ukraine will want that's our territories back. And then Trump saying with Ukraine, well, you got to give us our rare earth minerals. We're giving you this money. You got to give us something in return. That's just like Trump. Everything's business, which is okay. But all those rare earth minerals, at least most of them, they're in the east and they're controlled by Russia now. Russia has taken that land. So how does Ukraine give them to us? Russia's not going to give that land back because that's ethnically Russian, and that was the whole point of the war. So I think it's going to be very It's going to be very difficult, I think, to come to an agreement on this war. And another reason is because Russia's winning. So they're kind of like, well, why do we need to negotiate? If we just keep grinding on, we'll eventually get what we want, so we don't have to give up anything. Now, maybe the answer is because sanctions would be lifted and they could help Russia's economy more. But Russia's pretty well. They survived the sanctions, and they've built another economy based with like China and India, Brazil, other countries, the BRICS. So they're like, we don't really need you, the United States anymore, or the West. We've become self-reliant. We have our own energy. We make our own factories over here. We can trade with China. And do you plan to bully China too? Well, good luck for that, because you get a lot of your stuff from China. So I think Russia has a stronger hand right here. Putin does. So it's going to be difficult to see how this will work.
Well, certainly to end it, obviously the two parties got to want to end it. I know for a fact that Ukraine wants to end this war, so do their people, and they've actually made some concessions to accommodate that.
Well, in the war, of course, both sides, in any war, both sides want to end it. But what does that mean to end it? Ukraine ending the war meant taking back what they consider to be their territories, and Russia ending it means that Ukraine, they give up being part of NATO, they demilitarize, and the eastern provinces known as the Donbass, which are ethnically Russian, are recognized as part of Russian territory. And Crimea, maybe Odessa too. So that's the problem. How do you resolve those disputed territories? And that could be tricky for both sides. But in a negotiation, you're not exactly going to get 100% what you want.
In other words, they're willing to give up territory to Russia, the territory that they're currently occupying. Russia doesn't want to enter into negotiations right now. I think he will continue to talk to the president, maybe even meet with the president, because it gives Putin significant legitimacy to be dealing with the world's #1 superpower. Putin is far from that status, to be sure. But Putin is going to play tough and likely will want some concessions just to go into negotiations. And I think we all have to know and recognize, I know the president knows it, that a ceasefire and some kind of agreement would just be a temporary pause in Putin's mind to returning to his aspirations to take control of Ukraine at some point. And that's what we have to recognize going into it. The negotiations will certainly be tough here, dealing with both sides. But, this.
It's kind of interesting. Russia has a better claim historically to Ukraine than the United States does to Canada. I'm just saying. Historically, Ukraine has been a part of Russia many times. So
we're not just arbitrating a disagreement between two sides here. Putin started this war.
No, I wouldn't. That's simplistic. Who started the war? The war started in 2014 when this guy, I think, is a neocon, helped to overthrow the elected government of Ukraine. And then it started a civil war because the eastern provinces, which are ethnically Russian, did not want to be part of that regime anymore. And it started a civil war.
All these casualties and deaths are on his hands. And obviously we want...
So this guy's just talking neocon propaganda points. But if you're going to go into real negotiations, you got to be a little more sophisticated than that. Oh, Putin went crazy. He wanted to take over the entire world. If that's going to be your angle, you're not going to be able to negotiate it properly. And I think the J.D. Vance understands that. Elon Musk does. And I think hopefully Trump will too. So the neocons basically, they don't want the war to ever end. But I think Trump is tired of it, and there will have to be concessions. Because the neocons, they're always repeating 1939 and World War II, that if you come to a negotiated settlement, that's appeasement, like Chamberlain. And that emboldened Hitler. This is going to embolden Putin to take over the world. You know, they keep replaying that same thing over and over, and it's just not true. But that's where they always go back to. So, yeah, that is the situation. All right. We'll go to the domestic stuff here. And as a reminder, today's Tuesday. So if you're not part of my Substack, sign up. We have our roundtable tonight. I think we'll discuss Doge and all their cuts they're doing, and is that possible? And that's at 7 p.m. tonight. And thank you for that. And if you want to have questions, keep super chats, rants, and power chats. I appreciate those. So yeah, here we go. Trump seems to be doing pretty good on the domestic sphere. So here we go.
You know, I think one of the things that's so important for politicians is for folks to believe what they're saying and that they're keeping their campaign promises. So I think this gives you a pretty gosh darn good idea of what may be going on. Trump's doing what he promised to do. You go back to April of 2017, it was just 46% of all Americans who said that Trump was doing what he promised to do. Compare that now to February of 2025. You know, there was a good show that was on during the 1990s called A Different World. That is what's going on right now. We're living in a different world.
I probably would have been in these numbers because in April 2017, I was disappointed with how Trump was handling things, because Trump in 2017 was trying to be, I'm going to be the nice guy. I'm going to reach out to the Democrats. Let's all work together. And he didn't really understand that what we now call the deep state or the blob was, and his own FBI was trying to undermine him. And I think he's lived and learned. So it's a different Trump now. He's not trying to appease these bastards. He understands that they're the enemy and they need to be shut down.
70% of Americans say Trump is doing what he promised to do. Again, compare that to April of 2017 when it's just 46%. When Americans are 24 points more likely to say that you're doing what you promised to do, it's no wonder that your net approval rating is much more likely to be on the positive side of the ledger than on the negative side. And so far, what we're seeing, again, is Americans, 21 days so far versus just 11 days during his entire first term, that Trump has a positive net approval rating. Quite a different world.
It is. It is. And he is doing what he promised to do. I haven't seen any, and again, immediately, remember in 2016 to 17, lock Hillary Clinton up. No, I'm not going to really do this. And all these things, build the wall, just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And to be fair, I'm not trying to be too hard on Trump. I don't think he understood the nature of the opposition or how Washington worked. And also, it was a different time then. It was just after Obama. And Hillary was expected to win, so they concocted with the FBI the hoax about the Russia conspiracy theory and all that. So it was a different time there. So I've been pleased, and I think Trump has learned a lot. All right, here's something that I'm kind of okay with, but not entirely. It's like hedging your bets. So let's watch this. This is a Secretary of Defense.
There it is. Pursuant to the authority of the Secretary of Defense, Title 10, United States Code, Section 113, I direct the Army to change the name of Fort Liberty, North Carolina to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's right. Bragg is back.
Just a little background on this, and it really typifies conservatives of how they always try to have plausible deniability. And by the way, Fort Bragg is what was known as Fort Bragg, what is a huge base in North Carolina, Army base. And it was Fort Bragg for a long time, and it was named after Braxton Bragg. And Braxton Bragg was a prominent Confederate general. He was actually a general. He also fought in the Mexican-American War, and he was very brave. He was a brave soldier, and then after the war, he retired after the Mexican War. And then he was asked, because he was in North Carolina, to serve his country, which was the Confederates. And so he fought on the Confederate side of the war. I was not a huge fan of him as a general, as a Confederate general. Forget all the politics. I didn't think he was that innovative in his tactics. And he, in many ways, he wasn't well liked. He was pretty close with Jefferson Davis, so they kind of fought a little bit. But whatever, he was an important general from North Carolina. And so what happened after the Civil War, there was an idea that we all need to come back together as one country. And as part of the healing process, it was, we honored the Confederates. They were Americans. They fought for what they thought was right. With reason, because, by the way, our country, the United States, we were founded by a very similar war that, the Confederates didn't start the war. They just wanted it to be an independent country. Their argument is, we joined the Union as states, we should have the right to quit the Union as states, and we don't really like what Lincoln plans to do. And it wasn't at the time so much about slavery, it was about tariffs. So screw this, we don't have any representation properly, we're going to become our own nation, which is very similar what the United States, that's how we came to be. We used to be a colony of Britain, England, and we were like, no, we're going to be our own country now. And we had a war over it. And the same thing sort of happened with the South. They said, we're not going to attack you, North. You guys do what you want. We're not going to send an army and attack you, but we have a right to our country. And it was the North that attacked at Fort Sumter. They wouldn't leave Fort Sumter, which was, in the South. So that sparked the Civil War. But after the war, it wasn't thought that these people were traitors. In fact, Lee was a very admired man until recently, General Lee, Robert E. Lee. And in general, the Confederate soldiers. A lot of people thought maybe the cause was misguided. That's a whole debate. I don't think it was, but a lot of people do. But the official policy is we're going to honor both the people that fought on the North and the South. Great men on both sides. We were all Americans, but now we come together. That was the process that America went through from like 1870. There was a problem of Reconstruction, but then pretty much from 1870 until 1990, that was the official position. They had so the Confederate battle flag, Leonard Skinner would have it up as a concert. No one was offended. That was represented the Southern identity, and everyone was cool with it, right? But then we got into this woke stuff that they were insurrectionist traitors, all that bullshit. And so because of political correctness, they wanted to change the fort's name from Fort Bragg to Fort Liberty. And again, the fort was named after a Confederate general from North Carolina named Braxton Bragg. Well, Pete here, he didn't change the name back to Braxton Bragg, who was a Confederate soldier. The official position is, no, we're renaming it to Roland Bragg. This is where it gets really bizarre. I'm like, what? What the fuck is this real? Roland Bragg he fought in World War II. He didn't get the Medal of Honor. I guess he did some heroism. He got a Silver Star. That's nice. I'm sure he was a good soldier or whatever. He wasn't like some important general or anything. He was just some dude that fought in World War II. I guess he served honorably, and that's nice. But he really wasn't that important to the war. Unlike Braxton Bragg, that was key to the Civil War. And so they said, no, we're naming it after Roland L. Bragg. And Roland L. Bragg is not related at all to Braxton Bragg. It wasn't like Braxton Bragg was his great-granddaddy or something like that. They just happened to share the last name. That was it. In fact, Roland Bragg has no ties to North Carolina. He was born and lived in Maine. So there's no connection between Braxton Bragg and Roland L. Bragg. And so this is a a clever conservative way. I don't know, did they search the database for someone else named Bragg that they use? And they said, oh, we're not naming it after the Confederate general. No. We're changing the name back to Bragg, but the Bragg isn't Braxton Bragg that it was for all those years because it made sense. It was a North Carolina general from a general from North Carolina. We found this random dude that fought in World War II that happened to have the same last name. He was from Maine, no tie to North Carolina. So it's actually named after him. So see, it's not named after an evil Confederate. So they're playing, the conservative Republican way to play cute, right? To try to have plausible deniability. Because the proper thing is to say, no, we're changing it back to Bragg, named after Braxton Bragg. He was a Confederate soldier, but for almost 100 years, over 100 years, we considered them to be heroes, good Americans. We're not going to defame our history anymore. It's going back to his name. He was, before he was a Confederate soldier, he was an American soldier too, by the way. Fought in the Mexican-American War. So yeah, that's, we're going back to that. We're done with this PC bullshit. Instead, they're doing this weird proxy stuff like they do with the Jewish people or homosexuals versus Islam. Oh, we got to have some plausible deniability. Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll call it Fort Bragg again, but it's not the Braxton Bragg. It's just some random Bragg. It's just so stupid, but that's literally what they did now. So now you know the rest of the story. So I want to say, yeah, base, they're changing it back, but not really. They're doing something cute to try to appease the left. Spoiler, it won't appease the left, but they think this is trying to be clever here. So, yeah, this is where we have that. All right, let's see here. All right. This is something that is going to be difficult. The problem with what they're doing with Doge and Trump in general to try to defund the deep state, obviously they're not going to go quietly. A judge just blocked dropping the overhead charge on the National Health Institute grants from an outrageous 60% to a far more reasonable 15%. So the judges are trying to take over the executive branch, and this should have been expected. This is how the activist judges have taken control over a lot of America. Like California used to be pretty based in Republicans, and they put in various amendments to help protect their states, but it was overturned by liberal judges. So it's kind of judicial tyranny. This is something that needs to be addressed, that a judge does not have a right to set executive policy. If a judge wants to set executive policy, the judge should run for president. And this is something, in order to really fix the system, we're going to have one of these cases go to the Supreme Court to affirm that, yes, the president does have control over the executive branch. And this is part of the big fight that we're going to be seeing right now with the judges. And we'll take a look at some more of this here. Of the, I'm not going to watch this, but the judges are on some, it should be pretty much interesting to see if they're able to stop this. And this had to do, let me just see this here, about, Trump spoke a little bit about this. And Elizabeth Warren was objecting to this, cuts.
Mr. President, regarding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren, have said that by freezing it, it's giving big banks and giant corporations the green light to steal families.
Pocahontas, the faker. That was set up to destroy people. She used that as her little personal agency to go around and destroy people. and she's a fake. Just like she said she was an Indian, and she wasn't an Indian. You have more Indian blood in you than she has. She went to college based on the fact that she was an Indian. She got jobs based on the fact that she was an Indian. She's a fake. That was set up to destroy some very good people, and it worked. I mean, it worked. A lot of great people. I'll tell you, before I ever heard the term, people would come up to me in the Midwest and areas that say, "Sir, I'm being destroyed by them." They use that to destroy people. She's a nasty woman. She's a really nasty woman, despite her phony beer commercial. We did the right thing. That was a very important thing to get rid of. And it was also a waste. I mean, number one, it was a bad group of people running it, but it was also a waste. If you looked at when she really ran it, wow, that was a vicious group of people. They really destroyed a lot of people.
And you can confirm it's your goal is to have it totally eliminated, the agency?
Say, yeah, because we're trying to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse.
So this is what happens. You get a lot of government agencies that have a nice sounding name, but the agencies really don't do that. That's just to sound good. It's sort of like the USAID. It's not an aid organization, but people thought that's what it did. And Trump was talking about the need to get rid of some of these agencies, that they don't really do any good. In fact, they just waste a lot of money. So that is the thing. The other fake news we had, and this is why I wrote an article today, but you got to be careful, everything in context. And I saw the headline that Trump disavowed J.D. Vance. Trump was asked, is J.D. Vance your successor? And Trump says no. And he wants to give you the impression that Trump and J.D. Vance are already fighting. That's so if you just look at the headline, you would think, uh-oh, the bloom's already off the rose. I told you J.D. Vance is a weirdo that wears eyeliner. Trump and him are already fighting. They asked, hey, is J.D. Vance going to take over from you? And Trump said, no, he's not. Well, let's look at it in context, okay? Let's look at it in context. This is what the story came from.
Do you view Vice President J.D. Vance as your successor, the Republican nominee in 2028?
No, but he's very capable. I mean, I don't think that I think you have a lot of very capable people. So far, I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's too early. We're just starting.
Right. So this is pretty, when he said no, obviously, he said no. Do you view him as your successor in 2028? And Trump says no, but I think he's doing a good job. And this is really too early for this discussion. Obviously, they just been president. He's just had his administration for a couple of weeks, right? So to determine who's going to be the Republican candidate in 2028 is way premature, very premature. So obviously, Trump was not saying no in the sense that he doesn't like J.D. Vance. He was saying, no, I'm not appointing him as my successor. Who knows what's going to happen there? We don't know. There could be, you could have DeSantis or someone else, and he's not going to commit. And as Trump says, it's just too early for that. But I love J.D. Vance, so here we go.
But by the time you get to the midterms, he's going to be looking for an endorsement.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that this has been the greatest opening, almost 3 weeks, in the history of the presidency.
It's definitely been the fastest and the most stuff
Well, we've done so much so fast, and we really had to, because they have really, what they've done to our country is so sad. It's so sad. We're going to be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
Yeah, so I don't really see this as like him slamming J.D. Vance. And he says he likes J.D. Vance. It's just premature now to give his endorsement to a candidate now. What's 2025? Why should Trump be endorsing a candidate for 2028? This is ridiculous. And so I don't really see any issue here whatsoever. I think J.D. Vance would say the same thing. Usually politicians play coy. If they ask J.D. Vance, do you plan to run in 2028? I bet J.D. Vance was, like a typical political thing would be, no, that's too far in the future. We're just focused on making America great now, or something like that, which is really the right answer. So the idea there's any friction between the two, I think, is a little bit kind of strange there. Let's see here. Wow. All right. Well, we're about finished. We had a lot of stuff today. It's been a lot of fun. So we'll always like to end. I always end up. So I did a lot of dog ones, but Sasha's like, why can't you do more cat ones? So I'm going to do a cat one. This was kind of cute. A cat video. This is, owners couldn't figure out why their cat wasn't sleeping in its bed. Then they saw this. So they had the security camera. The cat's like, oh my God. Aww. That's pretty cute. That's pretty cute. All snuggly, sleep in the bed. So, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining today. And as a reminder, tonight we have our roundtable to all the Substack subscribers. And actually, through the end of February, if you're on Gumroad, I'll send the link on Gumroad too. But as of the end of February, in a couple of weeks, I will no longer maintain Gumroad. So go ahead and migrate over to Substack. It's a better platform anyway. It really is. So Gumroad's been having some technical issues. That's why I moved off of it. But thank you guys all for being here today. And I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And we will have the Ramsey Paul show at 11. I won't have a show Wednesday night, but I think the following Wednesday I may have a special show. I'm still working out the details. But thank you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.